there anything else you wanted to share with those listening about yourself and about your story? Go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. I love Meraki, and what you were saying about that is, it's curiosity, it's passion, it's the soul. Like, there's things we know on a surface level, but the depths of the soul and the hard work you mentioned is getting to the depths of that mysteriousness, which makes up life, Yeah. And the thing is, I have a poetry book. I would love to gift it to you and your wife. It's called A Lover's Fairy Tale. Everyone can get it on Amazon, loversfairytale.com. And, I love language. I love words. Growing up Greek, I was raised with Aristotle and Plato, like The Republic by Plato is my favorite book, and Socrates. And I always joke I'm Socrates' spiritual younger sister. And, his definition of a philosopher is a seeker who's a lover of wisdom. And I feel I am that. And language, growing up with hymns and, going into the church and all that. And I had this independent space of being Greek and being very independent growing up outside of Detroit, Michigan. I loved quotes and I read poetry. And then I found on my journey when I was publishing my first book, A Lover's Fairy Tale, that there's certain poets that write about certain things. And I found, I'm a poet that always writes about love. I always write about imagination and love. And so when people are so linear or they're doing just all the mundane things all the time, like that's why music, is so important, and it moves through our soul. It's language that we, can't express, but we can feel. If we try to express it, it doesn't come out because it's that, it's that transparent feeling that can't be equated to words in such a way. But poetry and all this curiosity moves us out of our routine, move us out of our psyche, I read a book by Alejandro Younger. He's from Uruguay. It's called Clean, and he's New York Times bestseller 3 times now. And the 12th chapter talks about quantum detoxification. You were saying the psyche. So we have our environmental toxins of, our families and our communities, and people are saying things and we attune to it or we don't. There's our physical toxins, in our products. There's also, like you said, the mental, toxins in our mind, and to dismantle the psyche in such a way. And I've gone through many transitions, and right now in end of 2022, going into 2023, I call it retiring. Like I'm retiring from what I thought I wanted, from what I thought I knew, from what expectations I had of myself. I'm retiring, and it's just like this psyche knowing from within that I'm retiring and throwing in the towel and I'm done with that. Doesn't mean I'm done with life. I'm just retiring from the things that I thought, to create space for a cumulative of what I know and making a lighter load for, where I want to go in the continuum. Also, there's this woman, Caroline Myss, M-Y-S-S. She's a mystic intuitive from Chicago. Your wife probably knows her. But she has a TED Talk called Choices. And people think the macro choices, breaking up with someone, getting a divorce, moving, are the macro choices. Those are actually the micro choices, right? They're not the macro choices. The macro choices are, showing up for this podcast, waking up in the morning, brushing our teeth. It's the micro choices that make up the macro, Yeah. And so she's a wordsmith. I idolize her. I follow her lead. She's amazing. Caroline Myss. She's a great study if anyone wants to tune into that.
Yeah, I heard a quote that said, a hero is somebody who's braver 5 minutes longer than everybody else. And I think in a lot of ways that's true. I guess let me leave you with this story. There was a nurse who, when I first met her on the unit where I get treated, she was already a nurse, but she was learning the ins and outs of that unit. She was about 25 years old. And about 8 months later, she was taking care of me by herself. And she came in and she said, Terry, I've got the story I want to tell you, but I'm a little uncomfortable telling it to you. I didn't really know how to respond to that. I'm like, well, it sounds like I might enjoy the story. I hope you decide you want to tell me. And she's in and out over the next couple hours, and then finally comes in, sits down on the bed. She's like, all right, here's the story. She said, when I first met you, she said I was going to get out of nursing. She said, I had a very good friend of mine die. I was in a very dark place. I had talked to my parents. I was going to quit nursing and I was going to go to work for Amazon. And then I met you. And I watch how you struggle every day you're here and how you react to your medication. And then I went back in your chart and I read about everything you've had done, your amputations, the medicines you're on, the surgeries you've had. And she said, after reading your story, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Now, if she would have never told me that story, I would have had no idea that my life had had a positive impact on her. I think we tend to get in a situation where we look at ourselves and say, we're damaged. We can't do anything. Yeah, we're all damaged. And if you're really damaged, you become an outlier. And if you're an outlier, you have a unique perspective and a unique opportunity to change the world. So when you get into those things where you think, I can't do anything, nobody cares about me, I'm no good, you should just throw me away and be done. I guarantee you, there are people out there that are looking at you and saying, oh my gosh, that person has so much confidence. Look at what they're doing with their lives. So we see ourselves as negative. Other people see us as incredibly positive and powerful. So I'll end with this quote, again, from John Wooden, who said, a careful person I want to be, a little person follows me. I dare not go astray for fear they may go the same way. So whenever you're feeling dark, whenever you're feeling ugly, and we all get into that, I feel that way from time to time myself, realize there are people out there that you don't even know that are watching you and just looking at you and saying, what an incredibly powerful individual Robert is, Terry is, whoever that is. So realize that you are leading or setting an example for people that you don't even know.
To me, this is all about growth.
Yeah.
You're the person you were yesterday is not who you are today, and it's not who you're going to be tomorrow. Every day you're growing, even if you don't realize it. The things that you experience, the things that you go through, they make an impact on you, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. And your response to it is growth. For you to say that you know yourself, you have to like, just like this quote says, you have to kind of put an asterisk near it, because you don't fully know yourself. You know who you are right now, but who you're going to be 5 years from now is going to be drastically different. I was reading one of my favorite people to listen to. He preaches and does different talks. His name is Ty Gibson, and just the other day he mentioned something on social media about how he had an idea or an opinion. There was an opinion that he held, and only recently did he change his opinion, which is that's fine. And a gentleman came up to him and said, "Hey, that opinion that you had, that was the right opinion. You shouldn't have changed your opinion." And he was very upset, like, how dare you change your opinion? And Tygus was like, oh, well, I did some more research on it. I thought more about it and I changed my mind. And it was I feel great about the fact that I was able to change how I felt, change my opinion. And the guy was just so upset. Like, how dare you change your opinion? But kind of like what you were mentioning, as part of being human, that incompleteness, we're never going to be at a point on our own where we are perfect. And so understanding that and coming to grips with that helps you understand and realize that you have to continue to grow day by day. That may mean changing your opinions. That may mean, the way that you reacted yesterday, you need to grow and learn that you have to react a different way today. I think the beauty of it is, for me, I lean heavily on my faith. My faith teaches me that, I am incomplete, but I believe in a God that will complete me and will complete work in me. And so that I feel reassured with that. I'm incomplete, and that's okay. I don't need to try and complete myself on my own. I just need to grow, and God will take care of the rest.
I think community is important, but any final thoughts you would like to share with those listening today?
Maybe I will say something what can be helpful here, and in my opinion, it's your openness, it's your readiness that's the main point here, I guess. Be ready to make some changes, but also listen to other people who have ideas too. Also, like, work together, because that is the advantage in community, that we have people all around us. We are not alone. So stay in touch, like, with your community. Be there for those people, like, take care if they need something. If you want to, like, have a better connection with other people, organize something together. All those points are connected somehow. I mean, safe community for me is when we take care about each other, when we are aware of changes that happen. Talk about those changes, talk about possible risks, but also keep something what is ours, like our thing. Like, for example, our meetings every Friday at, I don't know, 8 p.m. just to spend some time together, to talk, to celebrate. Yeah. And avoid situation when you lose contact. I mean, when you lose this connection and neglect meetings, ignore each other, like, close for everything. Like, act like you were in a happy bubble without problems. It's not a solution. Because it's not like it's always funny and it's always good in our life. As a community, we should be open also for challenges that the world gives us. So I think with that keeping in mind, I mean, being open, taking care of each other, but also stay in touch as a group, it's possible for the community to stay strong, actually.
That's a great question, by the way. I think from my experiences, just talking to a trusted friend, family member, or even a mental health professional was very helpful for me. Just simply having someone to listen, offer support, I think it can definitely make a huge difference in the situation. And just practicing self-care. Like you said before, it really is about the self, the person, the individual, accepting it and choosing to take a stand for what is transpiring within them. And that can be exercising, meditation, prayer and devotion, spending time with nature. I think that improves a whole lot when it comes down to your mood and also, alleviate stress. But on the other hand, just bottling up your emotions is just not the best way to go. Bottling up your emotions and not seeking help can worsen the situation to a point where you can start turning towards unhealthy coping mechanisms such as substance abuse, self-harm, or just doing something irrational. And these only provide temporary relief compared to something that can really benefit you in the future.
We have built-in forgetters. Right? So a silent healing to me speaks to, again, how PTSD can be the disease of despair, and how unnecessary that really should be, right? That it shouldn't be that. It should be that the meaning of a silent healing should mean that there's an awakening, that there's growth. But it unfortunately, because of the way we deal with PTSD and trauma, it doesn't end up being that way. So it does become this turtling in, this pain and an unspeakable kind of, or unspoken persistent disease, if you will. So and that's dis-ease as well as disease, right? Because we're not comfortable in our body, we're not comfortable with our thoughts or emotions or feelings. So I think that PTSD Awareness Month, I think it should be PTSD Awareness, period, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But it really should be thought of as a new beginning.
Yeah.
Someone comes and we have an opportunity to help, right? To facilitate the healing. This is a new path for healing individuals and our community and our society as a whole. And I think that PTSD Awareness Month should be remembered as an opportunity for spiritual awakening, spiritual growth, because we can go into that darkness and we can find the light.
Having gone through, Robert, some mental episodes,
Yeah.
right? We all go through it.
Yeah.
People think, like, for example, depression, it's like you go get better and you never get it again. No, I see depression like as a cold. You get it from time to time, you know. It's like it's like whether you can function or you can't function, you know. So in those times when you're trying to make a decision, it's very hard to make a decision that's really true to the moment, at the same time true to your idea of your vision for yourself. Because if you say, like, for example, if you're a naturally grateful person, naturally on a good day, and suddenly you have a bad day, you receive bad news, and then you're like, okay, now I want to make myself feel happy again. I'm going to list 10 things I'm grateful for. But then, like, these are the things that you know you're normally grateful for, but you're just not feeling it. It's really akin to lying to yourself, right? So what has helped is like being in your body and being in your mind and being in the moment. Maybe not so much your mind, because your mind can really take you out of the time where you are, either in the future or the past, but really like sort of like pausing. Pausing has helped because it lets you settle down, lets your mind settle down, and be honoring of what you need at that time. What also helps is having people around you who you know do not have an agenda, you know, who are interested in your well-being, your health, your you know, that your life is full of joy, or has joy if it's not completely full of it, you know, like people who just think the best of you. And even if it's just one best friend or two, you know, think of, you know, Eeyore.
Yeah. I remember him.
Right. So he's not trying to be anybody else if he's, you know, overthinking it or miserable, but he has people around him. And that's super important. That's a structure. The path of least resistance is really like when someone you trust and love and you know cares for you comes in and says, hey, here's a safe space for you to bawl your eyes out. And then you'll be better again, and you can make that decision that you need to make.
This way, just to spark our conversation, it says, some people think that they're in the community, but they're only in proximity. True community requires commitment and openness. It is a willingness to extend yourself to encounter and know the other. What comes to mind when you hear this quote?
When I hear that, two things come to mind. First, to remember that we are the same. We're all the same. And we feel that maybe sometimes we're alone, but we're all the same. The basic needs of human beings are the same, the six basic needs. And the other thing is be willing to be vulnerable. Because when you are vulnerable, first of all, you can get supported. And you give permission to the person in front of you to be vulnerable as well. And that way you can really connect from the heart and form a real community, heart to heart.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you brought up culture, because I think in the United States, at least, we are very individualistic. Like we kind of like to do our own thing and have control and be very private in our lives and keep everything to ourselves, versus doing things more as a community or a neighborhood or like extended family. You know, I think a lot of other cultures are much more like that, where they more see it as a group or a family or a tribe, or, you know, just so there's more of a feeling of belonging that can come with other cultures. I've lived overseas some, and I've experienced that and think that's very powerful. And I think that's something that living in the United States it can be hard in some ways, because we don't naturally have that unless you try to create it, which in my experience, I have found a lot of resistance, because people like their privacy. They like to be in their own house. They like to, you know, they don't like people, they don't like people intruding on them. Even like when we try to have all of our neighbors over for dinner and like, you know, just kind of And sometimes they're like, why do you want us to have over, why do you want to have us over for dinner? And I'm like, well, because we're trying to, build community. We're trying to be in each other's lives. And so I think there's so much value in having, because we all go through difficult times, difficult things, even if it's not the same thing. There's so much value in having the stability of being a part of something, and having different gifts, different talents, different, we all are so different, the way that we are built and made, our personalities, our gifts. And so being able to kind of draw on each other's strengths and like help each other out in our weaknesses is just so beautiful. And it's something I think we miss out on if we are just keep everything to ourselves.
Well, my history is fascinating, and I'm still amazed by it. In 2003, I was told by a world-leading neurologist that I had better get my affairs in order because I had ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, and I had 6 months to live. Now, that was a crushing blow. I was a leading cosmetic surgeon. To be told that, it was like, oh my God. So I literally went through all the phases that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says in her book on death and dying. I went through anger. I could have bitten the head off nails. Everybody around me knew I was angry. I went through bargaining. Oh God, please don't let this happen. I'll do anything if you don't let this happen. I went through denial. There's nothing wrong. I can do anything. But my right hand and my right leg were weak. They couldn't do things. But I was smart. I was a very ambidextrous person. So instead of being a right-handed surgeon, I became a left-handed surgeon. I invented tools that didn't even exist back then to keep myself going. But the worst phase is when you go through depression. Depression is a very, very bad thing. That's where you can stay in bed all day looking at the ceiling and saying, why am I doing anything? I'm going to die anyhow. I might as well not do anything. And I know there's dozens, if not hundreds of people out there that are in the depressed stage right now. And if you are, please seek out help, because it's an evil, evil thing. In fact, I got so depressed, I was going to kill myself. But before I did that, I went to my wife, who's a beautiful lady, and I said, dear, what do I have? And she said, I haven't got the faintest idea, but you're smart. You'll figure it out. I laughed at her. I said, I've seen hundreds of doctors. How can you figure that out? And she came up with this beautiful wisdom saying, perhaps you haven't seen the right doctor yet. Well, so far.
Yeah, it's interesting. I live a little bit in a constant state of grief. My daughter has a terminal illness, so we live in pretty much anticipatory grief. And I've lost my mom once my daughter was diagnosed. And you're right, these holidays are very different. In one sense, there's a little bit more pressure because I feel the pressure to still make it great. And now that pressure is on me, right? You know what I mean? Like when you were a kid, somebody else did it for you and, made it all happen. And now that comes down to me and me putting it on. But I don't know, I actually feel like I enjoy the holidays more now as an adult, even though there's that extra, because I get to decide what they look like. And so this has been a theme ever since my daughter was diagnosed, that we actually get to decide what life looks like, what our home looks like, what that looks like. And so we get to decide if things are like a no or like a heck yes, right? And so like I don't have to, if I don't want to, which I didn't over Thanksgiving. I'm in Canada, so we just had Thanksgiving. I didn't cook a turkey because I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So now that I'm older, I can decide what are the things that I want to, put my energy into and what actually makes this a great time, right? For everybody and makes everybody feel loved and cared for.
Learn in this platform too. I want to ask you as we wrap up, what would you want people to be reminded? It's just December, but it is the end of the month, end of the year, and what would you want to be reminded regarding, finding hope in whatever story they're in? And any final thoughts you want to share?
So I'll again quote something from my book. Actually, I saw this in a movie called Frozen 2. So what happens exactly is the protagonist Anna is also faced with a very tough task of saving the kingdom, saving her sister, and all those things. Okay, so then she's reminded of one thing, which is do the next right thing. It's all about doing the next right thing. So the problem, Robert, I see is many times when we face a lot of overwhelm, right? So we want to wish, just like from New York to San Diego or San Francisco, you want to go. So it's about going 1 mile at a time. So you can, there's always a saying like, how do you climb a mountain? One step at a time. So it is all about that. So focus on doing the next right thing, and then once you're done with that right thing, then focus on the next right thing. So it is not that you will not make mistakes, but at least you will break down the big thing into some smaller manageable things. And once even if you make that mistake, it's much better than procrastinating, because many times when you think and keep thinking, it goes into that analysis paralysis mode and nothing gets happened. So it's about doing the next right thing. And so I definitely would suggest and say like, I'm a much better person right now. It's only because I asked for help and I was vulnerable. So in fact, there's a TED talk by, if I remember the person name, it's called Brene Brown. And the TED Talk's title is The Power of Vulnerability. So she talks about how people have that mask of being superhuman, but only when you are vulnerable and you are ready to ask for help, that is when things change. And that's the beauty of being human. So this is what I would say, Robert.